Hello, friends, and welcome into Outreach Radio Chicago. I'm your host, Michael Mercado, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. On today's episode, joining us for the second time, she is the president and founder of Natren Inc. She is Natasha Trenev, and she joins us to tell us how Probiotic can help your daily health. We're everywhere in the universe. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like the radio show page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. We have a brand new website. It's mercadoairwaves.wordpress.com. You can see all the cool pictures we are posting at Instagram, Mike Mercado2333. And if you want to hear any past episodes of Outreach Radio Chicago or any of the cool UFC interviews that we are doing with legends like Dan Henderson, Dominic Cruz, Frank Mir, subscribe to us on YouTube, Mike Mercado2333. Coming up next on Outreach Radio Chicago, the president and founder of Natren Inc., Natasha Trenev, joins us. Stay tuned. Thank you for keeping it tuned into Outreach Radio Chicago. You can follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like the radio show page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. We're on Instagram if you want to see any of our cool pictures that we post. Just follow me at Mike Mercado2333. We have the brand new website, mercadoairwaves.wordpress.com. And you can always subscribe to us on YouTube, YouTube/Mike Mercado2333. And joining us again today, it is our pleasure and honor to have the president and founder of Natren Inc. to tell us a little bit about probiotics and how they can help your daily health is Natasha Trenev. Natasha, thank you for joining us again.
It's my pleasure. You know, I always love to talk about probiotics and how they can change your life.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we had the last time we were lucky to have you on is how passionate you were about just making sure people felt better. And, of course, for anybody that's interested, you could call 1-800-536-4833 or go to the website trynatren.com to see all their cool testimony and the probiotics that they have. But one of the things that, since we had you on a little while back when the show first started, just to kind of give people an idea, why exactly are probiotic supplements so important for not just, a quick fix or, when after you're done taking medicine, but for general good health?
Well, first of all, it's a 3-hour lecture, so I'll give you the very short executive summary.
Sounds good.
Probiotic organisms or friendly bacteria are essential to impact that 100 trillion microbes that live in your 27 feet of GI tract. It's really you're embellishing or improving the ecosystem composition when you take the proper probiotic on a daily basis, because every time you eat, drink, or breathe, you are ingesting bacteria. And that has an upset on your ecosystem. Stress, aging, antibiotics, other drugs will also have an impact. And now there are thousands of articles appearing in the most prestigious journals of all kind, stating, number one, that this, a microbiome, which is the sum of all the genetic material of the microbes, affects everything we do. In fact, how we think, our emotions are, depression, anxiety, whether or not we can have proper cognitive function, whether or not our organs function properly. Bacteria are found in every organ in our body. So we really, as human beings, have to understand our relationship with these microbes, because we're really an evolved hybrid of bacteria and human cells.
Why do you think, is it because of the word bacteria that people either aren't as worried about it or are just so careless when it comes to, any type of digestion help or anything like that? Because I feel back when I was a teenager working at GNC, people were taking probiotics for so many different reasons, for health, for weight loss and things like that. And it never made a lot of sense to me. Why do you feel there's a disconnect right now between, the consumer and all you doing the research?
Well, you know what the disconnect is, because the consumers have been very well trained by the media to look for a magic pill to solve a problem. And, that's just not the case. The health food industry, because I've been part of it for over 45 years, was a movement to educate people how to improve their lives without resorting to pharma drugs. And in other words, pharma drugs are great for critical care, but, you have to learn about your body if you're going to enjoy your life. And people don't understand that depression is caused by what's going on in their gut. So they go for, some kind of a stimulant, but they don't understand the function of their body. And I think we're reaching an age of maturity, I hope, with all this information going back and forth on the Internet, where people really have to understand the function of their body. And the most important function is our GI tract, because our GI tract is the inside world facing the outside world that, takes everything on the inside. And then we have to nourish from that food that we take from the outside without disturbing the immune system, which is largely on our GI tract wall, the second brain, which is there. So the lack of understanding has led to so many problems and chronic conditions in our country that it's coming, I think, to a critical pivotal point.
Now, with saying all that, is it true that a lot of products that sell probiotics and are trying to sell these goods that it's, like you said, one magical pill, they're showing up dead on arrival? Because I don't think a lot of people understand that probiotics are living, quote unquote. So when that happens, like, is that a true problem that you guys are dealing with right now? Is the saturation in the community for the consumer that they're getting bad product?
Yeah, well, they are getting they're getting what I would call unethical products, because there is a labeling standard that was voted on by the entire health food industry in 1989, and then later read into congressional record 1994 as our industry's promise to Congress and the American people that we would self-regulate. And I was part of those standards committees, and it was a wonderful process. Unfortunately, the minute that passed that bill, the Deshay bill passed, everybody developed what I call selective amnesia. And whether you believe the labels or not, the fact is, the first step before you get complex here is to understand what to look for when you buy a probiotic. And if you don't know what to look for, you're going to be confused, because virtually 90% of the products on the shelf are made by the same contract manufacturer. It's just positioning by the company selling the product to you and your lack of understanding when you buy one of those products.
When all these years that you've been doing, the research, you've written books, you've educated people for so many years about this. You're the president and founder of Natron, and you've been able to really become a face or like a leader in this community. But can you give any advice or any telltales for the consumer, for anybody listening today on Outreach Radio, how to find out whether or not the bacteria in the probiotics themselves are healthy, or if they're dead, damaged, if what they're taking is just a placebo?
Very good question. Yes, I do. I have promised myself that before I sail off into the sunset, I'm going to now educate the public about how to buy a good probiotic. I mean, I had the pleasure of educating the globe on probiotics when nobody knew what probiotics were in the early 1980s. I literally traveled the world. And now I feel it's my job to teach people how to read a label. Otherwise, they're not going to get those benefits that they think they're paying for. So number one, forget all these products that tell you they're shelf-stable and they sit unrefrigerated in a store, whether it's a health food store, a mass market store, or anywhere. Because let me assure you that when they talk about shelf stability, they're talking about a laboratory temperature of about 70, 72 degrees Fahrenheit with no exposure to weather or moisture changes for the product. And that's very misleading, because by the time that product got to the health food store shelf, it's been exposed in shipping to temperatures maybe as high as 140 or very low temperatures as minus 20. Both can have adverse effect on that living microorganism that's trying to reach your health food store and then reach your gut. So that's an easy thing. Just eliminate any product that's not in the refrigerator. So now once you get to the refrigerator, eliminate any product that's not in a dark glass brown bottle. Why? Because the three enemies of a probiotic organism is moisture, heat, and UV light. So you want to protect it, because what are you trying to do? You're trying to suspend the growth of that microorganism until you ingest it and it wakes up to work in your body. And that's exactly what you're looking for. Now, once you have a product in a dark glass bottle, it must state specifically what organisms are in the product and how much of that organism, of each organism, is available to you through an expiry date. Let me tell you what the game is now. The same contract manufacturer gives multiple strains to its private labelers. And they list maybe 6, sometimes up to 14 different strains in the product, but they never tell you how much of that product is how much of that bacteria is in the product through an expiry date. And maybe as a consumer you say, well, why should you care? Well, you should care because you're ingesting live microbes, live bacteria, and you should know why those bacteria are in the product and how much you're ingesting of them when you take the product. Now, the other game that they play, they'll tell you they have 50, 100 billion, but they don't tell you exactly what the 100 or 50 billion of those microbes are. So if you're trying to impact the most important ecosystem in your body, you should know exactly why that bacteria is in that product, whether it's going to survive shelf life, and whether it can survive the stomach acid and bile activity in order to do you any good whatsoever.
Natasha Trenev joins us today on Outreach Radio Chicago. We are honored. She is the president and founder of Natron Inc. You can actually find out more information if anybody's interested after some of the cool information that she has been giving us. Just call 1-800-536-4833 or go to trynatron.com. That's trynatren.com. And it's funny, you bring up knowing exactly what you're putting into your body because it's living bacteria going into you. How hard is it in today's day and age of technology where we're always just clicking accept, I read the agreement, and go on? How hard is it to get people to actually read the damn labels?
Well, it's not that hard because if you go to our website, I have a label with 6 points. And, it's not rocket science. It's very easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, and if you're buying something that's not going to do you any good, then what happens? You turn yourself off to probiotics. Mm-hmm. In fact, I actually offer a free a starter diet, low-carbohydrate diet that was developed by a friend of mine, a doctor, and we worked in unison so that people don't have to spend hundreds of dollars, getting tapes and all these things. It's a very simple trifold, and you get it free. We give it to you free because we want people to get healthy. And we also give you a very simple-to-start exercise program along with the probiotics because we're an old-fashioned health food company. We really want our consumers and our clients to get better using the product and improving their life.
Natasha, everybody who's listened to the first episode you're on and today, we could tell. I mean, you don't get the nickname Mother of Probiotics without caring, and you can hear it that you truly believe in the product and you truly believe in the program. But what is the biggest problem or hurdle that you've been having to go through trying to get the message across to consumers to try to teach them exactly the benefits of being on a program and not being on one? The downfall of it.
Well, my biggest problem is all the misinformation that's on the internet now, and that people, are so confused. They don't know how to choose the right probiotic because I feel that, the tripod of health for the 21st century is the proper probiotic supplementation, the proper diet, and the proper exercise program. And I think that you can see a turnaround in anybody's health if they start following that. I'm frustrated because people's attention is about, a second or maybe 2 seconds, and they don't realize how important this information is, especially for their children. We have children now who are put on drugs to stop projectile vomiting, which is really part of the acid imbalance, even in a young, delicate baby stomach. We have so many problems. We have autism exploding from 1 in 10,000 in the 1970s to the latest stats, which is 1 in 50. And I'm not talking about disease prevention. I'm talking about improving the health of the mother, the father, the child, the grandparents. You see, it's generational. These bacteria gets passed on from one generation to another. That's a scientific fact. And because of our ignorance and our, ability to eat, junk food and trash our system, and then we wonder why we're not feeling good and why we feel lousy all the time. Well, actually, the choice is ours, and it's all about discipline. If you don't have the discipline and you don't want to invest in learning how to feel better, then you're going to feel lousy all the time.
Natasha, what exactly, next time we have you on, whether it's on a few months or just in general, what are your goals? What would you like to see, from your company to the consumer and just in general?
Well, what I'd like to see is a movement in the public like we had for organic labeling 15 years ago.
Yeah.
If you recall, there was huge confusion about organic labeling, and finally the government had to step in. And I don't know if that's always a good solution, but the fact is that now at least 90% of the stuff that's labeled organic you're pretty sure you're getting stuff that's pesticide-free. Yeah. So that's what my position is, that I want people to understand what the labeling standard is. And this is not about trashing competition. I think an informed consumer will force change in the industry because this is such an important concept and it's such an important product for your health, especially if you're an athlete. I forgot to mention that. Many athletes don't understand how their endurance can improve because if they're digesting and absorbing the proper nutrients, their recovery time is going to be much better and they're going to be able to perform much better. So this is so important for everybody to understand how to read a label. And if you start rewarding the people who have the correct label and are based according to the labeling standard read into a congressional record, you are going to be rewarding the people who are playing by the rules and then disincentivizing people who are not playing by the rules to stop doing it.
It was actually a really cool nugget for any of the athletes or parents of athletes that were listening to that too. You're looking for that little edge that, can help you feel better and make you maybe perform a little bit better, whether it's mentally or physically. That's something great. And as you've been saying the whole time, people, please read the labels. You'll sit there and read an Instagram post that's, 3 paragraphs long. You could take 5 seconds to read the label. Natasha, thank you so much. Do you have any last words or advice for anybody listening today on Outreach Radio Chicago?
Oh, yeah, that my advice is to you that you are what you eat and absorb. And this is something that you should be paying the most attention at. If people understood their body like they do their iPhones, we would have a drastic reduction in disease in this country.
Yeah. Natasha Trenev from Natren.com. You guys are awesome. Keep kicking butt. One last time, Natren Probiotics. Call 1-800-536-4833 or go to the website, trynatren.com, TRYNATREN.com. We've had the pleasure to have the best advice we can get from the mother of probiotics, founder and president of Natren.com, Natasha Trenev. Thank you so much. You have a home here on Outreach Radio. Keep kicking butt.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure, Mike. Anytime you want me on to talk about anything that's new in the microbiome, there's so much science coming out. It'll be my pleasure, especially people who are an athlete.
And that'll do it for us, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Outreach Radio Chicago. One last thank you to Natasha Trenev for joining us today. If you would like any more information, please dial 1-800-536-4833 or go to the website, trynatren.com. Thank you all again for joining us today. You can follow us everywhere in the universe. I'm on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like the radio show page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. You can see all the cool pictures that we're posting, like of Game 2 of the NLCS between the Cubs and Dodgers on Instagram /MikeMercado2333. Visit the brand new website, mercadoairwaves.wordpress.com. And of course, if you would like to listen to past episodes of Outreach Radio Chicago or some of our interviews with UFC legends like Dan Henderson, Frank Mir, Dominic Cruz, just go to YouTube /MikeMercado2333 and subscribe to us. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Outreach Radio Chicago. One last thank you to Natasha for joining us, and we will see you all next time on Outreach Radio Chicago. Take us home, Hav.